What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 140, and this is another interview in partnership with Turnbuckle TV. So after this one, go back and check out all of our other Turnbuckle TV interviews with the likes of Big F and Joe, Chantal Jordan, Dave and Ant from DNA Wrestling, Alex Talbot, and so many more. So check all them out on Turnbuckle TV. Or on any other podcast platform, or maybe even YouTube. Visit our YouTube page. But today, my next guest is one of the fast rising young talents on the UK scene, and one of the standouts of 2019 on the UK women's independent scene as well. I want to introduce to you the Descending Angel Lucia Lee. So, Lucia, great to have you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
You're very, very welcome. You're very, very welcome. It's been a long time in coming. I know that we set this up a little while ago, but the day is finally here. So great to be speaking to you. But, speaking about kind of more topical things, we're about 3 months into the lockdown over here in the UK. There's no restaurants open, no gyms open, no live wrestling. I'm sure that's really kind of doing your head in being so many months into it. But how are you maintaining your fitness, your strength and conditioning, your cardio during the times when you might be able to get out and have a bit of a run? I don't know, you might have weights at home, I don't know, but you can't get to a gym and there's no wrestling training schools open. So what are you doing to maintain your fitness and your strength and conditioning there, Lucia?
So I'm really lucky that I have like loads of gym equipment at home. That's my dad's. Like we have a punch bag, we have dumbbells, barbells, like with all like different interchangeable weights. I've got like a resistance band. I'm actually like quite well kitted out at home. So I haven't been struggling that much, but I do miss like the atmosphere of being in a gym, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And having to do it all from home, are you finding it difficult to keep yourself motivated to do your strength and conditioning or your cardio work, or do you have to force yourself to do it, or is it just something you look forward to doing? How are you with kind of keeping yourself fit and healthy from home?
I'm usually okay. Cardio has been a little bit of a, forcing myself to do it. I don't mind weights at all. Like I can like lift for hours, but when it comes to cardio, I'm just like dragging myself through it because I hate it so much. Like in-ring cardio is like, it's like a killer, but at least when it's in a ring, like you've got like a little bit of, a reason to be doing it. When I'm at home, I'm just like, oh, I'd rather just sit on my sofa.
Yeah, and I think having spoken to a lot of other wrestlers during this kind of pandemic is when they're able to hit a gym or get inside a wrestling ring, it's kind of not necessarily having to start all over again, but it's going to be having to knock off some ring rust, get used to the ropes again, get used to the bumps again. Are you looking forward to that?
I'm not looking forward to the first bump back. That's gonna kill, because it's been nearly 3 months since I've been in a ring.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't even think like that's so long.
Yeah, but that's the response I've been getting from a lot of the wrestlers. They can't wait to get back into the ring, but they know it's going to hurt the first couple of bumps they have to take. But I mean, besides your physical well-being, it's important to look after your mental well-being as well during these difficult times, especially with many millions of people around the world having to work from home or being in isolation at home. Now, you've been a big proponent and campaigner for mental health issues, especially on your social media, and you did a video recently for Hope Spots. Now, tell us about why you decided to speak up about the importance of looking after yourself mentally, and especially this Hope Spots video that you did.
I think that within wrestling there is a lot of people that suffer with mental illnesses, whether that's like workers or fans. I think that wrestling's really good for escapism. It's a great distraction, and now that wrestling's sort of taken away, people are going to be feeling a lot worse. Like I know that I found it like quite difficult without having wrestling as my sort of, I call it like a safety zone, because it is a safety zone for people. It's a place that you can go and you can be yourself and you can enjoy yourself. And at home, I think that it's important to look after yourself. Like you don't want to push yourself too hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's quite an important message that you're putting out there, and I hope don't mind me saying you're still kind of a year into the business, quite one of the younger members of the wrestling scene in the UK scene, and it's quite a big step to kind of be a bit of a role model and kind of stand out there to put out such an important message. Do you feel that there's a bit of responsibility as a pro wrestler to kind of reach out to your fans and make sure that they're all well and that they're looking after themselves in that sort of sense?
Yeah, definitely, because without fans, I mean, I don't know if you've watched like much of WWE and like AEW, they're having like no fan shows. the atmosphere is so different. So the fans are such an important aspect of the whole business that, I mean, I've spoken to like a few fans, I've like checked in and stuff. I've had conversations with everyone. It's just nice to like stay in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as I said, you had an amazing first year. It's incredible to think that you only debuted, I think, was it last April, Lucia, 2019 when you debuted? And
March
you've done
2019.
You've done so much in such a short space of time. Do you have to kind of stand back and pinch yourself sometimes because of everything you've accomplished and all the great matches and opponents that you faced in just 12 months time, really, or less than that, considering when your last match was?
Yeah, it's been really cool. I debuted like fairly quickly. I debuted after like 7 months of training, which is like unheard of. And I think that since then I've just sort of I was chucked in at the deep end, and it was sort of like a sink or swim mentality. And I think that I'm doing okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to dig deep into your kind of training and your first year as a pro wrestler fairly soon. But when did you kind of discover pro wrestling as a fan first of all? Then, Lucy, was it friends or family members that got you into it? Can you remember when you first kind of watched pro wrestling and when you first became hooked on this sport that we love?
So my little brother was a big wrestling fan when he was younger, so it was always sort of there. I remember like playing with wrestling figures with him because he had like a ring and he had like the little like miniature figures, and like it's kind of like Rock'em Sock'em Robots where you'd like basically just bash the buttons of a wrestling ring, and I thought it was great. Then as we got a bit older, he'd just be like watching it and I'd be in the room. At first I thought it was like really stupid. Then I saw women's wrestling for the first time, and I saw Paige and I was like, oh, women do this. This is cool. And I just got hooked, and I spent like 2 days in my room watching all the women's wrestling I could when I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And
Would you say that was that the pivotal moment, do you think, when you kind of locked yourself away for them couple of days and just submerged yourself in pro wrestling, in the women's wrestling in particular? Do you think that was a pivotal moment in your wrestling fandom that made you think, yeah, I quite fancy giving this a go myself?
100%. As soon as I was literally just scrolling through YouTube, and I was just looking for like as much women's wrestling I could find, and like I discovered so much, and I started seeing all these girls like Paige, AJ, Lita, Melina, all these girls, and I was just like, oh my god, they're like the coolest people in the world. They're like superheroes, and I've always been a big fan of like things like Batman, the Avengers, and stuff. So seeing like girls do that in like real life, I just thought it was amazing.
Real life superheroes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But and you mentioned a few names there, but when you were kind of first getting into wrestling, who were some of the characters and some of the wrestlers that really jumping out at you that were your favourites at the time?
I was a huge fan of Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
And like I'd go back and I'd watch his like John Moxley promos and stuff, and I'd watch like all his like MVs and stuff and his CZW stuff, and like, I just thought that he was the coolest person in the world. Paige and AJ definitely. Lita. I'm trying to think of. I love the Shield. I loved CM Punk. I loved Brian. Just everyone really.
Some good names there.
Yeah, I was just so submerged in like everything wrestling that I could find.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you kind of searched out other promotions as well. You didn't just stick with WWE, but that's really cool. And I can tell just by listening to you that you're a rounded kind of wrestling fan and not just sticking to one promotion. So that's really, really good. So how did you start training to become a pro wrestler then? Tell us about that process of finding a school, stepping through the doors for the first time on that first day. How did you start looking to become a pro wrestler? How did you start your training?
So I wanted to start training when I was about 14. I messaged Kamikaze Pro. I was like, oh, are girls allowed to like take part in your school? And they were like, yeah, of course, come on down. We've got like a 13-year-old girl here that was Shan.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my mum and I was like, oh, I found this school. They're not like that far away. Do you think that I could like start training? And after a bit of research into what wrestling was, she basically was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay then. So then I had to wait another 2 years, and I found a nearer school at Coventry Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
Then I started training there September 2018.
Right. So you started training in September 2018. You debuted in March 2019. So that was quite a quick process then. I mean, were there any aspects during your kind of early months of training that you found difficult or was tough on your body in particular? Were there any kind of moves or aspects of the training and the drills that you were doing that you didn't enjoy?
So I was a dancer for about 5 or 6 years, and in dance you're always taught smile, don't show any pain, don't show your emotion, but not not. I found selling really hard from that,
Yeah,
because you've got to like act like there's pain on your face, but in dance it's like, oh, if something hurts you smile through it.
sure.
You get the performance done. So I did find that really hard to adapt to. I'm trying to think of anything else. um I think that's pretty much it. I feel like I adapted to most stuff fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Like I had great trainers. I had Liam Roberts looking out for me. Really, he just sort of took me under his wing, and I think that I was pretty much it.
Yeah. And CPW, they've got their own academy, haven't they? I understand.
Yeah, it's great.
So did you have to have some trainee matches or some academy matches to start off with? And how soon was it until you had your first kind of trainee match?
I had a match on a training show 8 weeks after I started training. That was pretty crazy. I don't really count that as like my first match, because it didn't really feel like a match. Like I just was going through the motions of something that someone else had planned for me.
Yeah.
And I did like a battle royal as well on that show, which I won.
Yeah. Oh,
and yeah.
Well, so that must have been, a really fantastic moment. You kind of 2 or 3 matches in, you've won a battle royal.
Yeah.
But your first proper match, I think you was alluded to, was against Nadia Sapphire, if I'm not mistaken. Now, what can you remember about that match? Because I mean, Nadia's been on the circuit for quite a while. She's an experienced pro. She's wrestled all the top names, certainly, the women of the UK. So how did it feel to kind of step into the ring with somebody as experienced as Nadia?
I was terrified before I met her, because I was like, oh my God, she's like this like huge like star. She has like this. Nadia is someone that has like the star quality. Like when she walks into a room, you know that she's there, because she's such a big personality. And I was like so worried that she was going to be like the same as her wrestling character. I was like, oh no, is this
bit of a diva?
I was so worried. But like I met her and she was the loveliest person. Honestly, like as soon as she got there, she gave me a massive hug. She's like, you excited? She's like really looking out for me. She gave me loads of input in what we would do in the match. Dan Evans helped us plan so that we'd both like look quite good.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. I think that she's probably one of the best heel females in the UK.
Yeah, and I don't think she gets enough credit, or gets the credit that she deserves, to be honest with you. And I've seen Nadia wrestle, and I've seen her as a valet for many, many years, and she is very, very good. She needs to be given more credit than she gets. But I mean, you've just kind of backed up everything there, that she's a true pro, and helping younger wrestlers like yourself, certainly in their first matches. But I have to ask you, I mean, you must have been a bit nervous before that first match, but do you still suffer with nerves when you go into the ring kind of a year in? And how do you prepare for your matches? How do you try to overcome the nerves before you step through the curtain?
I don't really get nerves until like I'm about to go through the curtain.
Really?
The only time that I've really, really been nervous, I was really nervous before my match with Chantel at Kamikaze, and I was really nervous before my debut at Wrestling 4. They're the two that I've been really nervous. Oh, and my debut for Kamikaze as well. I was actually really nervous for that one.
So it seems to be mostly when you're kind of your first show for a new promotion, and you obviously feel like you've got something to prove.
Yes, definitely. Like there's a huge chip on my shoulder to, be good at least. Like I never want anyone to come away and think, oh, Lucia Lee, she was awful, worst part of the show. Like that's always like in the back of my mind, and I'm like, okay, you've got to make sure that you aren't the worst person in the room. You've got to make sure that you are, at least above a certain level. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, going back to CPW, you're only a few months into making your official debut when you won the CPW Women's Championship, Lucia. So, I mean, how did that feel when you were told that you were going to be winning the Women's Championship for CPW? And CPW, they're an established company, being around quite a while. You're a few months in, and, they give you the news that they're going to put the title on you.
It felt really surreal when I won it. That's probably my favourite weekend of my career because the next day I debuted for Kamikaze as well. So I won the title, then I debuted for like one of my favourite promotions, and it was really crazy. The promoter Phil has always really looked out for me, and when I came in the CPW Women's division, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Like there wasn't many girls. It was basically like the same two girls on every show. And I think that when I came in, I sort of breathed a little bit of life into the division, which because I was like a homegrown talent, and like they hadn't really seen that for a few years, having someone that was in their system.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, tell us about that moment of winning the match, being handed the belt. That must have been, you know, something that you dreamt of as a wrestling fan, and here it is happening just a few months in. I mean, it must have felt quite surreal.
I love that belt as well. Like it was like the first belt that like I was like holding. I was like, I remember when one of the former champions had it, and I was like, oh, I want this one day. And then when they told me like, oh yeah, you're over in this match, I was like, oh, I just couldn't believe it. I was so excited because they just had a title change at the last show. So I was assuming that I was going to come in and be like, oh, the first like person that they defeated. And they were like, oh no, it's 2 out of 3 falls match. And then I got to debut my submission, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your moves very soon, Lucy. But I don't know if this is still the case, but you were the longest reigning CPW Women's Champion. I think you held the belt for about 7 months plus. Is that still the case? You're still the longest reigning champion, although you're not the champion currently, of course.
I'm not sure if they're counting like the COVID stuff. I think I'll be. Yeah, I think I'm still the longest. I'm not sure, but it was really cool holding that belt for so long and having a lot of cool matches with it, a lot of cool title matches.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, all good winning streaks have to come to an end. You dropped the title to a good friend, another fantastic wrestler, Hannah Taylor. And tell us about that experience, because although you're on, you know, opposing ends of the ring during that match, you know, you are quite close to Hannah, and it must have been quite a thrill to see you kind of losing the belt to somebody that you know.
There's no one else I'd rather have lost it to. That's her first championship as well, and it was it was so sweet. Like she was so shocked when like they told her that she was winning. I actually brought her into CPW.
Right.
I was asked for a list of girls that I really wanted to work, and she was on the list, and they were like, "Yep, it's going to be you versus Hannah in September," which is the first time we wrestled. And then they brought her back a few times, and now she's champ, and I'm really, really proud of her. She's so good.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. And I've seen the match, and it was a fantastic match. But that's not the only championship that you won with CPW, is it? Because at one point you were also the CPW Galaxy Champion as well. Now, am I right in thinking that the Galaxy Champion is open to both male and female competitors?
It is now. I'm the first female to hold the belt.
Right.
On a briefcase to cash in for a title shot, and I cashed it in on a men's championship, which changed the rules of the belt because there's no intergender allowed at CPW, so they had it as like mixed tag matches. But yeah, it's I'm the only woman to have held a men's title at that company, which is pretty cool.
That is really, really cool. And, you know, you find that a lot of promotions now are kind of doing a lot more intergender matches. And you said that, you know, with you winning the Galaxy Championship, that opened the doors for women to be part of the Galaxy division, I suppose. But how do you kind of feel wrestling the guys as well as the girls? I mean, I've seen a few matches with you wrestling the guys. You seem perfectly happy, well in your comfort zone. Does it have a different feel, a different vibe? Do you kind of, you know, wrestle differently wrestling the guys as opposed to the ladies? How does it work as far as you're concerned?
I love wrestling the guys. I only really get to do it at Kamikaze, but I think that it's so helpful in your training. You look at girls like Millie, McKenzie and Chantal Jordan, their careers have been wrestling guys, and they become like much more well-rounded because with the girls, because women's wrestling hasn't been going that long, you've got like a few girls like Nadia and Lana that have been around for so long, but most of the girls are fairly new, and it's like with the guys, they've got a little bit more experience and like wrestling different styles and stuff, because a lot of the girls are like, you know, 2 to 4 years in, if that makes sense. So having like matches with guys, it is really, really helpful, I think.
Yeah, definitely looks like it makes you a more rounded wrestler, I suppose. I mean, when I spoke to Chantel for another Turnbuckle TV interview, she said the same thing, that it's helped to kind of grow her career and grow her as a character and as a performer. But I mean, let's talk a bit about your wrestling style then. So you mentioned, or you alluded to, your finishing move earlier on, but you got a very athletic in-ring kind of style. Many of your moves demonstrate your flexibility as a wrestler. You mentioned that you were dancing, probably attributed to some of that. Tell us about your wrestling style then, Lucia, because and some of your moves as well. How would you describe your in-ring style, and has there been anybody that's kind of been influential to some of your moves or your style in particular?
I think I'm quite a brawler. A lot of my moves are like strike based. I've taken a lot of inspiration from Charlotte Flair. Like we both do the natural selection, and I've tried to like base my style a little bit around Bryan Danielson as well, which I'm looking forward to showing off a little bit more when wrestling's back.
Yeah.
Because I'm quite comfortable with like submission wrestling and stuff, but I'm always a little bit too nervous to like try it out in like actual matches and stuff. Because it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I get in my own head and I'm like, oh, if you mess this up, you're gonna look like really stupid. So just don't do it. Just stick to what you know. But like, I think that I really want to like try and elevate myself and like push myself to do it like more stuff.
Yeah, add another level to the Lucia Lee arsenal, I suppose. But that'd be great to see you kind of break out some submission holes in the future, definitely. But tell us about your finisher then, because you briefly mentioned it earlier on. For any of my listeners that are not too familiar with your moveset, explain your finisher and why it's so devastating, and kind of why you chose it to be your finisher in the first place.
So Kevin Isaac, that you've interviewed before, from HopeSpot, me and him were training once, and I wanted to start doing a submission finisher, and he was just showing me a few different things, and then he showed me the cattle mutilation, and I fell in love with it. He showed me how to do it, and it's basically a double chicken wing, and then you bridge over like on your head.
Yeah.
And I love it because I can get like quite a high bridge on it, and I just think that it looks so evil.
Yeah, it's a sick move. It really is a sick move, and it looks really, really cool. But no, that's great. And like I say, if you can break out a few more submission holes like that, that would be pretty awesome. But let's talk a bit about your gimmick then, Lucia, if we can, because you started your career at the very beginning as a babyface, and then you quickly transitioned into being a heel, and now we have the Descending Angel. Tell us a bit about the transition into the character we know now then.
So when I started out, I really struggled with finding myself. I found it like really hard to try and become a character and become like a gimmick, so to speak. Like I thought that I'd have to be like, really like over the top, and like, I didn't want to be like John Cena or like, generic babyface number 5.
Yeah.
So I tried like to make myself a little bit more like edgier and just feed into my own personality. I'm really inspired by the band The Misfits.
Okay.
So that's always been like a bit of a inspiration to me. But then once I became a heel, it just clicked, and I managed to become like this angsty teenage emo. Like everyone can relate to that like stage in their life, sort of, where they're just like anti-authority, hate the parents. They think that they know it all, and that's really what I'd like embody.
Yeah, I love your gimmick. I love your character. It just fits you so well. And like I say, one thing that a lot of new wrestlers find difficult to grasp is kind of their character, their gimmick, and to channel kind of that personality that they want. Like all wrestlers say, it's kind of your own personality turned up to 11, isn't it? But you've kind of channeled it so well. And I think that besides your natural wrestling ability, your character really, really shines. But speaking of your character, one thing that I've noticed that really jumps out off the page is your ability in front of the camera, on a microphone. You're not fazed by any of that at all. You can cut a really good promo. Was that something that you had to learn, or was it something that came natural to you? Like, so you've cut a few promos on video, certainly on your social media pages in the past. But is that something that come natural to you, or something that you had to develop?
I think the first few promos I did were awful, and I think that once you find like your promo style, it becomes a lot easier. My issue is I tend to ramble a little bit, so sometimes I'm just like, okay, just cut it down, because I can talk for like the promo that I did for Chantal Jordan. That ended up having like 10 minutes worth of like me just speaking at the camera, just like.
Was that the one where you set a picture like of you and her? That was an awesome promo. I love that one so much.
We had to cut out so much footage from that. It was, oh, it's crazy. Like I was just rambling and rambling. I had so much to say, and I started talking about her mum and her family, and like I was editing it, and I was like, okay, yeah, we need to make this like at least like under like 5 minutes, or else no one's gonna watch it. But I do really enjoy promos and character stuff, because while I'm still like quite early on in my career, I'm not going to be the best in ring talent, but I know that I'm comfortable in my character work and I'm confident in it.
Yeah, it definitely shows. And if anybody wants to check that out, I know that I saw that a while ago on your Facebook page, or Lucia Lee's Facebook page. But that is an awesome promo. And I just love, because it's a dark setting. You're really kind of laying into Chantal, and then you set that picture of you and her alight. But that was really, really cool. Yeah. But let's talk about some of your opponents, and we'll talk about Chantal in a minute, I'm sure. But one kind of wrestler that really stood out, one match that really stood out to me, was your match with Dominator from last November the 30th, the Queen of the Ring tournament for Bellatrix. Now, she's a fierce competitor. Quite frankly, she scares me. I think she probably scares most of the locker room as well, male or female. But how tough was that match against Dominator? Because she's quite an intimidating character, putting it politely.
She's been in the business for so long that I was so intimidated when I first met her. I was so scared that she was going to hate me. And she's actually the loveliest person, like, you'll meet backstage. She's so sweet. She's got like an absolute heart of gold. And we've worked each other about 3 times now. Only one singles match. She actually drove me to that Bellatrix show and got me the booking, which I really appreciate. Cool. We drove up there together. And then Saraya night, she was just like, okay, yeah, it's you two in the first round. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, we had like a really fun match. It was really short, but they wanted it to be like very short so that she could like really get over her dominance. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, but I still want to make you look good. And she was really, really concerned with like putting me over, which I will really, really appreciate.
Yeah. But I love the the dynamic between the two of you. But that was a tough match. And then you faced Lana Austin at a CPW event this past December, wasn't it? I think it was their Christmas show. Now that must have been a bit of a dream come true for you, to face Lana Austin for your home promotion around Christmas time. What a thrill that must have been for you.
Originally, I wasn't booked against Lana on that show. And then her other match fell through. And they were like, oh, we might as well just have Lana versus Lucia. And I was so excited because I've looked up to Lana for so long. I think that she's incredible. Yeah. Honestly, like I just think that she's so cool. And I've always like, I remember once someone in a locker room said that I reminded them of like Lana when she was younger. And I was like, oh my God, really? Thank you. And she's great to work with. Like, she hits hard, but like it's worthwhile. Yeah, and that was a great match. And like I say, I mean, you're still kind of halfway through your first year, I suppose, by then, and you're already kind of living out these dream matches. And then there's Chantelle Jordan, of course. Now, I think you've had the most amount of matches with one single person against Chantelle. I think you've wrestled her the most out of all of your kind of opponents in your first year. But this leads us to our first kind of fan question from a James Griffith from Twitter. And he asks, after all of your great matches with Chantelle Jordan up and down the country, with many more matches to come, what's been your favourite match between you and Chantelle Jordan? That's a good question. I think probably the Kamikaze Pro Live match. I think it was Pro Live 23, because like, I did the promo for it. And when I won the Roulette Rumble as like the chance to face Shan, I didn't know until like right before, and I was so excited. It's like a great feeling when you get to work with someone so much, because you can really like test things out that work and that don't work, and you know what does work the more you work with each other. I've just said work like a million times, but that's fine. Yeah. The thing is with me and Shan, like she always goes out of her way to make sure that I'm happy with what we're doing. and she gave me like so much free reign in that match to like plan and just come up with ideas, and I really, really like it. And the ending sequence of that match is one of my favourites because we're just like trading like moves, and it's just really, really cool. And then another one, I love the one at Southwest Wrestling as well, which was the last woman standing match.
I was going to ask about that one, the last woman standing match, because what I've seen of that match just looked incredible, and you two just beat the living hell out of one another.
Oh yeah, that was a really tough match. Like, we had so much planned, and then like when we were in there, we were just like calling stuff, and I was just like, yeah, just I'm gonna put your arm through a door and boot you in the face and like DDT her on like a table, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, and that was the main event as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Which I really appreciated because that was like the second time I'd had a match there, and like they gave me the main event spot, and I really, really found that cool.
Yeah, I've got to ask you, and I've asked a few others this, especially the Elliot Jordan experience. So I asked him the same question. But what's it like to take one of Chantal Jordan's kicks to the chest or to the back of the head? Is it one that kind of makes you feel it the following day?
The worst kick I've ever taken from Shan was at CPW, one of the last matches before lockdown. So like I think she snap-nared me and like kicked me in the back, and oh my god, it was like, oh, like my spine just shivered, and I was like, oh my god. And then she pinned me afterwards, and I was like, Shan, Jesus. The chest kicks, they are like, they're nice, but like they are really, really, like you feel them, you know that you're being hit with it. Like I wrestled her like twice in one weekend in October last year, the first like 2 matches we had.
Yeah.
And my chest was hurting afterwards. It was pain. Like it was good, but it was like really painful.
Yeah, I know that, and this might have been at the Kamikaze live show that you was just mentioning, but there was a match between you and Chantel, and I call it kind of the slap heard around Birmingham, where you slapped Chantel across the face, and everybody in the audience just kind of went, ooh. And when I was watching it, I had the same reaction. That was a hell of a slap. That's turned into a bit of a meme in itself, that slap. But did she know that slap was coming? And did you hit her harder than you actually did? Did you mean to hit her that hard, is what I'm trying to say?
God. Right. So we planned the start of the match that Shan was like gonna attack me because like, you know, she was annoyed and stuff. But I think that she made the decision to sort of she wanted me to instigate it. She wanted me to hit her first, and we just knew that was what we were like planning. We just sort of like telepathically, best friend communication. She just squared up to me, and I was like, I think she wants me to slap her. So I just clarted. I didn't even aim. Like usually when I slap someone, I'll aim for like neck, but I just slapped her across the face, and I was like, I really hope she wanted me to do this, or else she's going to be so annoyed with me, and I'm getting a receipt. But I asked her afterwards, and she was like, yeah, I wanted you to slap me, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, that was a good bit of foresight from you there. Lucky bit of foresight, but. Putting characters and matches to one side, I know that Chantel is one of your best friends in the business, and she's been such an important part of your wrestling journey so far. You know, how would you kind of describe how kind of important Chantel Jordan's been in your career so far? Because I know that you're good friends kind of behind the scenes, and you've wrestled each other the most amount in the ring, but how would you describe your kind of your friendship and how important she's been to you?
Oh, I can't even like put it into words how much I love Shan. She's literally like my sister. She's looked after me from the moment like we both thought that we hated each other when we first met each other, and we just like it was Ryan Parrott that really like just sort of made us click, and we just started speaking more, and we'd be like calling each other all the time. She only lives like 30 minutes away from me, like by like drive, and Shan's actually, she's done so much for me. Her and her mum, like they've driven me to shows, they take me to training at Kamikaze. I literally can't thank them enough, because without them, I definitely wouldn't have had a lot of the opportunities I have had.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be like thankful to the pair of them. And Shan's always like been lovely to me as a friend as well. Like people think that we're like just like wrestling friends. No, we are like best friends. Like the business doesn't even come into it anymore. Like she's just my best friend.
Yeah, and I'm sure every time you get into the ring with her, you just kind of enjoy it more and more because you've got
Yeah.
such good chemistry. But that brings us to our next question from one of our Twitter followers. It's Angel, and Angel asks, "Who's been the most helpful person in your career so far?" So we've mentioned Chantel Jordan as being very, very important and helpful, but is there anybody else that you kind of say has been the most or one of the most important, helpful people in your career so far?
See, I have like so many great people that have really
Yeah,
looked after me.
throw,
Like I
throw a
have
list of names out if you want to.
Kevin Isaac has been
Yeah, we love
amazing.
Kevin. Yeah.
Liam Roberts, Will Star, his other wrestling name, has looked after me from day one. He's always like took me under his wing. And Marshall X, Kamikaze trainer,
Of course.
he has taught me so much about psychology and about wrestling, and he's put a lot of faith in me. Alex Connors has always looked out for me. Alex Talbot
Yeah.
has been huge help. Ryan Parrott, Bishop, MJ Grayson that I tag with at Kamikaze. He's like one of my favourite people. I've been really lucky in the people that I've been surrounded with. I've had very few negative people. Oh, Dan Evans and Natalie Wild. I literally call them like my wrestling parents.
Nice.
And I love I have so many like great people around me, and it's great.
It's nice to have that kind of support network, isn't it? You know, you got your family at home, but you know that your wrestling family, are kind of really important as well. Now, I've got another question here from let's see, from a Chantel from Birmingham, and she asks, ask Lucia why she eats porridge with water. So what's that all about?
I knew she was gonna do something. She messaged me last night, like, I really hope he asks my question. And I'm like, oh god, what has she asked? I think that porridge with milk is a bit too thick, so I have my oats with water in the morning, and she is a bean. So, yeah.
No, that's fair enough. That's up there with your Apple Lucozade addiction as well, I suppose. But
Yes.
where did the Apple? Because the Apple Lucozade, it's become part of your gimmick now, isn't it? That's really bizarre.
It's synonymous with me, which I love. I get tagged in like stories all the time of people just like filming their Apple Lucozade. One day I will get a sponsorship from Lucozade Energy. I don't know when, but it will happen. I think that me and James Cross. Oh, James Cross has also been like a huge help to me. Like he has driven me to training shows, everything. He's like looked after me more than anyone. I can't believe I forgot to mention him. I feel really bad now. But me and him, we just really like Apple Lucozade. And once I was just like, I'm gonna take this to the ring with me, and then I just started doing it, and it really works when I'm a heel. I don't know why, it's just really engaging to people because it's different, I guess. And now it's on my merch. It's just a part of me.
Yeah, you've got to get that sponsorship deal somewhere down the line. It's got to happen.
One day.
You've probably done more for Apple Lucozade than any kind of TV campaign they've ever done for it. But
definitely.
Another quick question from myself then. Are there any other matches or moments from your career so far that you're particularly proud of?
All my Kamikaze matches. That's like, it's been my favourite place to work because I don't think I've had a bad match there. I've never like come backstage from like Kamikaze and just thought, oh, I hated that, I was awful, which I have done that a few times. I get very in my own head and I'm like my worst critic. But match with Lacey Adams at Kamikaze was great. The first 4-on-4 match that we had at Kamikaze as well, with the second to none versus the Heroes Next Door. That was a lot of fun. Wrestling 4, my debut there because I got to work with Millie, which was like a dream come true. And just, I think I've enjoyed all my matches in a way, even the bad ones, because I can look back on them and see like how much I've grown.
Yeah, definitely. Now I've got a question here from Kevin Isaacs, and we've had him on the podcast before. A really great guy. Don't worry. He's asked, could you ask Lucia? Ask her maybe what she thinks the indie scene could do better. So kind of looking at the indie scene and what you think could help improve the indie scene, or anything that you feel needs to get better.
I think within wrestling, there is a lot of things that go on backstage that a lot of fans and people aren't aware of regarding there's notions of things like sexism that I've seen very prominently in wrestling. I think that rather than having companies, having these little rivalries and, being at war with each other, I think that it'd be detrimental to especially young girls like myself to have more of a safeguarding structure in place. I've been in situations that haven't been like great in wrestling. I've had fans shout very demeaning comments at me when I was like 16. I've had other trainees make me very uncomfortable. I think that wrestling as a whole could do better by protecting the younger generation.
Good point.
Even not just in things like sexism, but there's a lot of hazing that goes on sometimes at certain promotions, and I just think that like people should remember that kids are kids, and just because like whatever happened to you when you came in, you don't have to like carry that on. I have a lot of young trainees at CPW that I will always look after. I have like a group of girls there now that are like 10 and 11, and all of them I will like protect them no matter what.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It really is fantastic. And they need somebody like yourself and the Chantal Jordans and to kind of look after the next crop of young girls that are coming through, to look up to and to kind of someone to go to and to talk to. But that's really, really great. Another question from myself then, and thanks for that question, Kevin. And for the earlier question, Chantal, of course. Now we know the secret behind her watery porridge. But a question from myself. Are there any wrestlers that you would love to get in the ring with that you haven't had the chance to so far? Now, you mentioned Millie McKenzie. Now, Millie McKenzie was a bit of a dream match for you. You had a kind of an encounter with Millie at Wrestling 4. But any other wrestlers that you'd love to get into the ring with that you haven't had a chance to so far?
Charlie Evans, definitely. I'm just in awe of Charlie Evans. I think that she's just like the cooler version of me, and I love her. Lizzie Evo, I really, really want to work with. That match got cancelled because of COVID. Jade, Nightshade, Debbie Keitel, just there's so many girls that I'd love to work with.
That's an impressive
Giselle
list.
Shaw,
Giselle's up there definitely. That's pretty cool. And more matches with Millie, I'm sure. I mean, tell us a bit about the match you had with Millie at Wrestling 4 then, because that was a bit of a dream match for you. Millie and yourself, you live in the same kind of neck of the woods. How did that match kind of get kind of booked essentially, and how happy were you that you were finally going to be in the ring with Millie?
So Alex booked me. He was the first person to book me outside of my training school. I ended up working at other places like before that booking came around, but he's always the first person that set that in stone. That also plays a huge part in why I debuted for Kamikaze, because I wouldn't have been getting pictures backstage in my gear at Kamikaze if I wasn't booked at Wrestling 4. So I have a lot to thank Alex for in that regard. But when I found out that Millie was in the match, I was so nervous. I think Brian Parrott told me before Alex did. I can't remember who told me first, but I was a little bit unsure because she'd been booked at Wrestling 4 a few times and it had fell through because I think that she was ill one of the times and couldn't get there. And I was just nervous, and I was excited, but at the same time, like 7 girls, I was like, oh, I might not really get to work with her, but I did. I had like a couple of little spots with her, which was really cool. And I was so nervous backstage, and she just like came up to me and she was like, don't worry, I get anxious before all my matches. You'll be fine. And I was just like, yeah, well, I'm wrestling you, I'm kind of nervous. And she's like, oh, don't be nervous, it's fine. And I'm like, oh, thank you. She was really sweet to me that day. She's always really looked out for me, which is really nice.
And what you want now is a singles match. You want that one-on-one encounter, don't you? So that's something to put on your bucket list, I suppose. But we're going to kind of wrap up with the final few questions here, Lucia. But are there any countries that you'd like to visit and kind of wrestle in, or any promotions in particular that you'd love to work for in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, say?
Pro Wrestling Eve is like top of my list. I'm hoping to get down there as soon as wrestling's back and just experience the show, because I'll be 18 by the time shows are back and I'll be able to go into the Res Gal.
Yep.
I'd love to go to Japan. I think that's become sort of like a cliche at this point with how many people say it, but Japan is the goal.
Absolutely.
I'd love to go to Australia, New Zealand. I'd love to go over Europe, Belgium, just anywhere where there's wrestling, really.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one promotion that I think you've already been announced as part of their roster is a New Breed Wrestling Association,
Yes.
and you've been announced as a new roster member there when they kind of finally open their doors. And so how chuffed were you when they kind of asked you to be part of their roster when they reopen sometime this year, hopefully?
It was really, really sweet. So I turned up to one of their shows in January. I took part in a Kelly Six seminar, and then I did commentary for their women's match. And the promoters have been nothing but lovely to me. Like, they've really, really put me over and been really sweet to me. So I'm really looking forward to getting back there, because I think that, I want to really help build their women's division up, basically.
Yeah, really, really cool. Lucia, it's been amazing having you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast in partnership with Turnbuckle TV. But before we let you go, we can't kind of have you on without giving you a chance to plug any social media that you have, any merch, where we can reach out to you, say hi, get to know more about the Descending Angel. So, throw out some plugs. The floor is yours.
Okay. So my Instagram and Twitter is @_Lucia Lee 3. My Facebook is just Lucia Lee. My merch is at onthegear.com or .co.uk. I don't know. It's just On The Gear. Check that out, and check out Hope Spot Clothing.
Yeah, definitely. And all of those links will be added to the description of this podcast. So whether you're kind of listening to this on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, click into the description and all of the links will be there. I'll make sure that I get the correct merch address from Lucia and make sure that's kind of put into the description. But thank you, Lucia, for being a fantastic guest on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. So there we go. Please keep it tuned to the Wrestling with Johners podcast. And if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please don't forget to spread the word. Tell your friends and tell your family. Don't forget to subscribe to the Wrestling with Johners podcast on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or as I said, give us a subscribe on YouTube and help us out there, and that way you don't miss out on a single episode. You get a notification every time a new episode drops. Thanks again to Lucia for being a great guest. Thanks again to Turnbuckle TV, of course, who's been such great sponsors and supporters of the show. And thanks to everybody for listening or watching this great interview. Take care, have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you all again soon.